start this. Alright, so we're working through this numbers program. I did say we're going to have a maximum of 50 whole numbers. So when we create the random numbers, our step 1 would be to go and create our array on top. So you could have gone array num is our array. This is a 0 to 49, or you could have gone 1 to 50, which is fine, of integer. And then I wonder. Alright, so we create our array with position 0 to 49 of integer because we said it's going to be whole numbers. With this one, because as soon as you see, we're going to have adding numbers, removing numbers. So we're not sure how many numbers we will have. So then we must know we must also create our variable to keep track of what's happening. So what we can do is we can just create our q integer variable. So this can be our counter to keep track of how many elements we've got inside this array. Alright, everybody good to that? Alright, I assume so. No, 100%. Welcome, welcome. Glad to hear that you're here. Alright, no, perfect, perfect. Alright, so now our next step is the random one. So let's read the instructions. I asked, generate random whole numbers between 20 and 70, and then stop once the total of all the numbers are more than 500. So now we want to ask for numbers, but we want to stop when the total of all the numbers is more than 500. So now it's a little bit tricky. Now we don't know. Your first question you could ask yourself is, do we need a loop for this or not? What do you think? Yes, we do. So are we going to go our unconditional loop, for loop, or do we need a conditional loop, like either a repeat or a while? Which one will work? The repeat loop, exactly right. Why not the for loop? So repeat loop's 100% right. The thing with a for loop, our unconditional loop, is you need to know how many numbers we're going to generate. And you agree with this one, we don't know how many numbers. It could be 10 numbers, it could be 20 numbers, it could be 5 numbers. We don't know how many to generate when this happens. So because of that, we need a conditional loop, so which is our repeat. So we can go repeat until. So once we've got that part, let me just take this on top. Why the for loop? What are you going to say in the for loop? How many times are you going to run the for loop? See, so now the problem with yours is it's going to do it 50 times. What if we reach this total after 10 numbers? So yours will always generate 50 numbers. But now we don't know because we want to stop as soon as our total is more than 500. So it's not necessarily going to be 50 numbers. Alright. So that's why we need our repeat until, and you agree, we want to go until the total is more than 500. Yes, 100%. Yes, you could go while loop as well. Yes. Yeah. So it would have worked fine, sort of. The only problem is, let's say after 10 numbers, you've reached that 500 total. Yours will still go another 10 times or 50, 49 times, just checking. Yes. So it will run fine, but it's just efficiency will be a problem. All right. So the best is, remember with Delphi as well, it's a high level language. So it's very close to English. So let's try to keep to it as close as possible. So we knew we want to do a loop, and we knew it's not for loop, so it needed to be a repeat. So we go repeat, we go until, and we said we want to stop, so we want to repeat this until the total is more than 500, because that's what this says. Stop once the total is more than 500. Now, when you do total, let's try this completely. Then you realize, each total, I don't know what that is yet. So what we do is we just create a variable called total. And at the start, we can just say the total should be 0 because we haven't added anything yet. So we just created the variable, we made it 0, and we said repeat all this until the total is more than 500. Alright, now let's generate our random number. So we want to generate a random whole number between 20 and 70. Then we see, oh, here's a times 2. So what did this person do? Yes. So this person made it even numbers. Now at this stage, the question didn't ask for even numbers. So we don't worry about that for now. But now what we do need to do is we need to just fix this again. So what will the first part be? And the last part? Yes. Alright, so EHS people, do you know random range? Yeah. No, I don't. Alright, so how this one works, I know Mr. Wakosho doesn't like this one, so that's why I sort of knew that you wouldn't have been taught this one. So for random range, your first thing that you needed to do is right on top of uses, you have to add math. So I think you did do that for some other functions. But once you add the math, the function of random range appears. So how it works, this is your bottom range, and that is your top range, but your bottom one is inclusive, meaning we can reach the 20, but the top range is exclusive. So you need to go one more. So to get a 70, you need to go to 71, so you can still get 70. So yeah, and that's basically how random range works. So it's a little bit easier than the random highest minus lowest plus 1 outside plus lowest. If you do that, that's 100% fine. It really doesn't matter. So if you wanted to do that route, let's do it here. You would have gone random. Our highest value is 70 minus our lowest value, which is 20, always plus 1 on the outside, plus your lowest value is 20. So you guys would have done that route, which is also fine. Alright, so but now this we wanted to put into the array. And then once you start with the array, you realize, okay, I need to put an index there. So now this person put in I because our for loop always used I. So theoretically it's good, except this isn't a for loop. So I doesn't have a value yet, and nothing happens to I. So what we do need to do is also before the time we maybe need to just say I is equal to 0. Or for Evangeni guys, you would have gone 1. Just start I at your first index, so that you can go array at that position, which in our case is 0, but in your case would be 1, gets this random number, and then we can display this random number, which is fine. But then, so displaying all this will all be fine, except total. We set total is 0, and then we repeat until total is more than 500, but total never changed on the inside. So what should I do with this total variable inside? Any ideas? So you wanted to go increment total. So you said you want to say total is equal to, yeah, array numbers at position I. So what this one does, so total started at 0. We get our random number. Now it's going to say total is going to become whatever total was, which is 0 at this stage, plus the number we just generated. And that will be put into total. Once that is done, we can check. If it's not more than 500, generate the next one, display it, put it in. Would all be good. However, we are still missing that one where we said Pavan said we must increment something. What must we increment here? Any ideas for somebody? Yes. Oh, increment is means make it one more. So it's sort of like we want to make one of our variables one more than it was already. So if you set q is equal to q plus 1, but what would have done exactly the same is if you said increment q. So that and that does exactly the same. So increment q just means add 1 to q. Alright, so we can have the increment q. What can we change? Either we need to add something or we can change something to make our program work. Our program's not going to work 100% yet. Alright, we can increment I. You said I must increment I, didn't you? You tell me, I don't know. Alright, so I is right and Q is right. We actually need both of them in this case. Alright, and the reason for that is, so the person, we carried on with what this person did. So what we did on top, remember we had Q to say how many elements is in the array. So for this, we needed to increment Q every time we added a number. Because every time we add a number, that means there's one more in the array. So increment Q is to keep track of that one. But what we did here is we used I to indicate the position. So for I, we also needed to increment, because after we added one, we needed to increment the position as well. So this is one way. What you could have done, if you wanted to make your life a little bit easier, is not use I at all. And instead of I, you could have just used Q the whole time. And you could have started at Q everywhere. And then this could have just been Q. And we wouldn't have used I. So this could have maybe solved more problems if you just didn't create a local variable and just started. Your global variable starts at 0. So the array at position 0 gets that number. We display that number. We add that number to the total. We increment our Q, which is now our position counter and our number of elements in the array counter, until that is true, and that will carry on the whole time. So if we run this, I've got other arrays. Yes, yes. So let's look there. If we do that. So now in this case, if you add all these numbers, you'll get to a total of more than 500. I didn't do a clear, so I can't. Let's see if you click it now. This might be a little bit few numbers or more, not necessarily. All right, and that was our enter button. So let's go back there again. Because we wanted to, let me just run through this again. We wanted to stop once the total of the numbers are more than 500. So we wanted to check the total. That means create total as 0. We wanted to repeat all of this code until our total is more than 500, which that's exactly what that thing said. Then what we wanted to do is we wanted to generate the whole numbers between 20 and 70. So we generated the random numbers, put that into our array. Then we just displayed the array, and then we added that number to the total. And that we went number for number for number every time, generating a new number, putting it into the array in the next position, displaying it, adding it, go to the next position, check total. Then get the next number, put it in the next position, display it, add that number to total, go to the next position and check, and then carry on until our total is more than 500. All right, all good. So, yes, no one will ask me. So, I don't want to say yes, but most of the time. Yeah. I want to say yes, but there's always exceptions. The thing with IT, if you can sort of understand the reasoning behind it, then you can do anything you want to. In this case, generally with repeat loops, it is easier if you use your counter from your global variable. So if you called it Q, then Q. Otherwise, if you called it N, then a N, or whatever you called it. For our repeat loops, it is easier using them. And for a for loop, I love using I just because I is the default one. But I mean, theoretically, you could have changed it to something else if you wanted to. And you can say, like, if you're unsure, go that route. For loop I, and when it's repeat loops, use Q. And then, like 99% of the time, you'll be right. The main key thing that I want you to remember also with this, when you create a while loop or a repeat loop, if you do the repeat until total is more than 500, so do you agree with checking this variable? So the variable in the condition needs to have two other places. Before the loop starts, you need to initialize it, and then on the inside of the loop, you need to give it a new value. So that always happens with the repeat loops and while loops. Whichever variables in your condition, initialize it before, change it on the inside. You want to have, it needs to basically be in three positions. Initialize on top, change inside, and use as a condition. So in those three places. And then with your enter button, I want to say, if some of you said, but Sir Ish, I thought I've got this under control, but this is still difficult and it's like the first button. The enter button generally is one of the more difficult ones, not because of any other reason than it's just there's a lot of variety that you could get. Like I just did now, I went to check the totals. And then the previous time we went until the person said stop. So, and then the previous time before that, we said do it 20 times. So, depending on what the question says, and that varies every time, your enter button could be different. But the enter button is so critical. All of you need to really make sure you do keep track of this, because the enter, if you do not get these numbers in, you cannot sort it. So you can't, none of your other buttons you can actually test if you don't have any values in your array. So you need to spend time, especially when you're studying, spend time on your enter buttons, look at the alternatives, and work through it. What I do want, the more programs, when you start studying for tests and exams, please work through programs. So what I would suggest, if you've got the possibility, get like an answer, like if I give you the correct answer of this, and print it out. And then what you do is take the program and go delete all the code, and then try to do it again. And then when you get stuck, you can go look on your printed version as to what was there and what should have been there. So, yeah. All right. Any questions on that so far? Alright, perfect. Alright, my next one, I just quickly want to run through the sorts. Sort should be easy. Okay, that's a sort descending. Alright, let's look at our sort ascending. So that's sort, remember our structure, for if. So structure is perfect. Our first for loop starts at I, the next one is j. In our if statement, we compare array at I with array at j. Inside it, we do our swap. So everything looks fantastic, except then when we start looking at our for loops. We're starting at 0, going to 49. Is this correct, or is something wrong here? Okay, I'll help you. Something is wrong. How can I fix it? What should I change? Alright, so we can do that. That will just be for efficiency. So, which is fine. We can do that. So it is a little bit more efficient now, but there's still two mistakes. In the whole button there's actually 3 mistakes, but for the sort part there's 2 mistakes. All of you sure we need to have 49 here? Yes, talk to me. Yes, well done. That needs to be Q, and this one? Also, and this one? Yeah. And now the sort should work fine actually. Let's quickly just test this thing. So we run it, we random numbers, sort high to low, and then you see, oh, it goes from 0 to 68. Alright. Now you know, something went wrong. Alright, but let's quickly see what we can do. So from 0 to 68, then what we do is decrease the wrong way around. So we change our symbol, save it, we play it. We will still have the 0 though, but we're going to fix that now. So there's our numbers. We sorted from high to low. There it's sorted from high to low, which is all good. Except this random 0 gets added. Why can that be? Anybody's got an idea? Why did this random 0 come in? So it's actually more for my Richards Bay people. Remember for us? Yes, perfect. Because remember, we're stopping one less. So we need to stop one before the end. So then we could have technically, everywhere we've got the Q, we actually do the Q minus 1. So let's quickly save this. Let's quickly run it now. Look at our numbers. We sort high to low. And they're perfect. Alright, so we must just remember, wherever you put the Q, it should actually just be Q minus 1. Then it will work perfect. Then what? Yes, talk to me. So yeah, so at the random numbers, because we displayed as we generated them, we don't need Q minus 1 here. Because the Q, see, if you technically see what happened, we've got position 0, we put it into position 0, we displayed position 0, we added position 0, then we went to position 1, and then we checked. So technically, if it was already broken, we would have gone out and Q is already 1, even though the numbers inside was only in position 0. So our Q is, because of this at the end, Q is always 1 more than it should actually be. And then, so there's different things you could do. What some people like doing. So remember, with all of this, you can really do what's easiest for you. What some people like doing, because this one's always 1 more than it should be. Some people likes to go and add just in this random part or in your enter button. They decrement Q immediately after the loop, because the Q is 1 more than it should be technically. So they do go and decrease it by 1. Then because they did that, you don't need any of these minus ones ever again. Then you can just go to Q every time. Yeah. So it depends on how you prefer it. Um, yeah, I think this might make it easier. Then we don't need to remember the minus one because we might forget it here and there somewhere. So maybe try to remember with your enter button. Throughout the loop, it will increment, but because we're changing it and then checking, Q will always be one more than it should be. So we must just decrement it outside. Just that last one, the checking value basically, we just want to remove. If your sequence inside here is the same as mine, you will also need it. You'll see because if you start at 1 and you put it in 1, the 1, 1, and you increment here, you'll go to 2 and then check. So yours will also be one more than it should be. If you didn't want to do this, you needed to change your sequence inside here a bit. Then you could maybe start it at 0, then first do the increment up there. If you were working with your arrays from 1 to 50, and you put it up there. Start at 0, then go to 1. Then put it in, display it, add it, check, and then increment. Then you didn't need this. Yes. So you wouldn't need it 100%. So with this one, I want to say that your tracing is so important to sort of just keep track of what's happening. In my case, I started at 0. So then I put it in position 0, displayed it, then added it, and then incremented and then checked. So because the increment's at the bottom, it will always be one more than it should be. Then decrement Q is a good option to just fix it again. All right. Hello, Radia. Welcome. No, it wasn't Radia. Radia joined late earlier. Who just joined now? Okay, never mind. All right, then our sort. Everybody good with sort? I think this. Welcome, welcome. All right, our sorting. Everybody good with sorting? I assume so. So I'm going to copy the sort. Going to our sort low to high. And then if you get this, sometimes it just randomly happens. You'll see sometimes it's going to happen. I think if some of you like followed what I was doing and you'll double click there, it would make most probably some of yours would just work. It won't get the errors. But if it ever says this cannot find implementation for method, what's, just go to your code. Then what happened? Something got moved around. So then just go look for it. So you'll see here. The end with a full stop means it's the end of your program. So what this thing tried to do now, it tried to add my button after the end of the program. So the main thing you need to do is just move your end down so that this is actually in the program. What it also sometimes does, it splits like pieces like this. It would maybe do that. Where there's a pro and then there's seizure here and then just see where it got broken up and then just move it to the right place. And then that should be fine. So then I'm going to copy paste my code. And then the only change we do is we just change the symbol. The smaller than becomes a greater than. And then our next sort is done. Sort low to high. Alright, then the last one. I think change numbers to even. Who did this one? Can I have that? Yeah, can anybody tell me if you try to do this one? Okay, who's me? Oh, Nikhil. Alright. And Navashan. Alright, so let's quickly see. So I think 2 people tried it, so I will do it in any case because I did ask for the first 2 buttons. So, well, and did you get it right, Nwandle? Alright. Navashan, did you get yours right? Alright, and Nikhil, you? Is it? Alright. Okay, well done. Alright. So let's quickly see. Yeah, so that's the thing. There might be two different ways. I think we can look at Nikhil's one just after this. This wasn't Nikhil's one. So what this person did, went integer I, create the integer variable, then went. So your first question that anybody like this person should have realized, or the first question you should ask yourself, do you want to go through all of the numbers in the array? And what is our answer to that? Yes, because do you agree? The question said change numbers to even. So we want to change all the numbers. And once you do that, once you answer that question, yes, I want to go through all the numbers. What does that mean? What do I need? Yes, for loop. So from 0 until q, do begin. And also, what you can try and remember is that, like this person, this change button didn't have a for loop, and the random button didn't have a for loop or a loop at all. As soon as you're doing arrays, and most of your buttons don't have loops, then you must assume something is going wrong. Um, Arrays, 90% of the time, you will need a loop to do the buttons. So if you want to do a button without a loop, sort of make 100% sure you're on the right track, because most probably you're wrong. It might need a for loop. All right, so we started the for loop. Remember, I worked from 0, so I went from 0 to q, my for loop. Then what this person did, they went, if the number I, which I have here, so it's going to take the number in the array, divided by 2 is equal to 1. What does mod do again? Gives us the remainder. So it's going to divide by 2 and check if the remainder is 1. So what does this actually check for? Yeah, so it will check if that number is an odd number. If it is, it's taking that number must become whatever it was, but plus 1. So that's perfect. Then, oh, this was actually, so this person had both of them there. So what it could have done is if we just do the clear before the for loop, and then we can do the display inside the for loop, and this would be fine. So that we clear the text area first, we go through the whole array, we check if each number is an odd number. If it's an odd number, we add 1. If not, we don't do anything, and then we just display the numbers. So let's see what this does. So there's the error. Right. So there's our numbers. Let's sort it low to high. There we see that's sorted. Change to even. And there you can see all the numbers are even. Yeah, well done. I think that's perfect. Nikhil, maybe you can tell us, what did you do to change it to even? Okay. Yeah, you can do that, 100%. On my way in, yes, I can. Okay, so you also loop through everything. Then you also checked if the number is actually an even number. Then you cleared it and then you displayed all the numbers. Otherwise, you added 1 and then cleared it. And then... So, yeah, the problem with yours, you're going to look at the first number, see if it's even. If it's even, you're going to display all the numbers. If it's not even, you're going to add 1 to that number and then display all the numbers. See, so what I would have done, I would have just remove the for loop and remove the clear from both of them. See that one? Yeah, remove the clear and the for, and you can take out the begin as well if you want to, and then just take the end at the end. Just after that one, just take out the end. No, go up just below up that one there. All right, then on that inside also take out the clear and the for loop and also the begin and also the end just after. All right, so now let's see. So now you're gonna loop through all the numbers, check if it's an even number, then display it. Otherwise, you're gonna add one to it and then display it. The only problem I've got, do you see your both of your displays? You're displaying K. Why are you displaying very? Oh, it was the other for loop. So just don't worry about it. So go to that K and just make it an I because we're adding one to, and the same with the other one. Yes, we're 36 minutes already into the recording. Yeah. Oh, hectic. Now I've been recording, and we basically done. Then I'll quickly do a recap of everything again. All right. Yes, ask me, Nikhil. You read. Yeah. All right, hold on there. Let's see. Go there back again. Let's just see if that's right. All right, guys. Let's see. It's a somebody wins a prize if you can see what's wrong. Not necessarily that there is something wrong here, but let's just check. Yes, there is something wrong here. So who can see what's the problem here? Yeah, well done. All right. So where's the right position? Yes, for you. So just just after the repeat. Yes. So just go after your repeat and increment Q. Try now. Now it should work. Because you never incremented your Q. Oh, so we can't see your running. So you must just see if it works or not. But it's fine. Just check if it works. But because you didn't increment Q, your array actually stayed empty the whole time. Did it work now? No. Oh, it won't work. Go to your sort. Okay, so what's wrong there, guys? Again, you can win a prize. Like a congratulations from me. So who can see what's wrong here? All right. Yeah, well done. So that one should be I. If it's I now, it's already better. Yeah. Yeah, if you go +1, it's more efficient. But just having the I is already fixing it. It would work with just the I. So if you put an I there, it means the first time you're gonna get into that if, you're gonna compare because J will be equal to I. So the first time you go to the if, it's gonna compare the same number to the same number. So it's sort of like just wasting the first check, but from then on, J will increment. So then J will compare to the next one and to the next one. So then it's fine. But initially, that first check, it will just check it with the same number, which might be a waste. Just wasting CPU's time. And working now. We can't see what's running, so you must tell us. All right, so just quickly go to the other one for me. Yeah, first one. Um, let's go. quickly go where you created your array. Let me just see what you did there, like right on top. Alright, so you went from, okay, it should be 0 to 49 though. Remember, we said maximum of 50 numbers. Right on top. So 0 to 49. Alright, now go to your enter button again. So you also followed my way from 0. So that what you want to do is your q equals 0 should actually be, because your q is 0, and then in your repeat loop, you immediately increment q. So you go to 1. And because you followed our way, 0 is empty. You never actually filled in something in 0. So start your q at -1, not at 0. So don't remove it. Just take out the 0 and just put a -1 in there. That should solve your problem. Run it now. Should work fine now. Because you increment immediately, then you would want to just start at 0. It's working. Okay. All right. So with all these things, as you would see now, like Nakil is following another route, which is also 100% fine. So I want to say you're starting to do these things, you'll start seeing different alternatives, and that's why I love using other people's code to show you guys, and even Nikhil showing his now. I love doing that because now all of you can see different varieties and see what it does. You get used to code. You'll see, oh, okay, but if this happens, then that. So you just think of it, and yeah, that's what I personally love about IT. There's so many different alternatives for answers, and there's no just one way of answering. So in grade 12, I used to, when I was at EHS, I marked for the department, and I marked for about 15 years. I was marking, and they always put me by the last question, question 4, which is sort of the most difficult one, which is like an open question where you can do anything you want to. So people, when they start marking, they put them by like question 1s and 2, which you just follow the memo. There's no alternatives. It's right or wrong. But when you get to question 4, it's like an open question, and anybody can do it. So you need to actually trace everybody's answers to see if it's gonna work or not. And by the end of a marking session, like some years, we had like 20 alternatives, because every time you get the solution and you say, oh, this can also work, and they add it to the memo. So then at the end of a marking session, like for question 4, there was years that we had close to 20 different answers, which was all fine, that could get 100%, but it's just because different kids thinking differently, doing different things. And so that's why I really want you guys to try and always do the homework, especially when you look like at Nikhil's now. Don't think, now can quickly go do something, I don't need to pay attention. Pay attention, look what they're doing. You learn from just reading code and seeing these things, and it will help you become a better programmer, and you'll learn quicker just to pick up errors and understand everything around it. All right, thanks, Nikhil. Yes, yeah. All right, let's see. Yes, clear needs to be before the full. All right. Anybody, any other questions?